Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Haribo, thank you so much for coming to honor Rajendranandana Prabhu, dearly beloved member of our community who... What's that? Is that good? Okay. So a very dearly beloved member of our New Govardhan community here. I mean, he was also a resident in Mayapur and a dear beloved member of their community, but we know him as our hometown Rajendranandana Prabhu. So first off, I wanted to say that, I was going to read a nice little kind of an offering by Bhadrinarayan Swami that also spoke a little bit about Rajendranandana Prabhu for those who may not know a lot about him. So I'll read that first. And then after that, we've got a wonderful clip. It's about a 10-minute clip of Rajendranandana Prabhu speaking of his memories about Srila Prabhupada. And then once that's over, we'll start, everybody who'd like to say something about Rajendranandana Prabhu will go from there. And I did want to mention that, before we get started here, that his dear wife, Chatura Mataji, and his dear son, Ajay Prabhu, they would have loved to have been here. Naturally it's hard, naturally, they more than appreciate that, Rajendranandana Prabhu has gone under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna, Radha and Krishna. But there also is natural that there's a time for mourning. So she sends her love, her respects, and her real deep appreciation that all of you are here to honor Rajendranandana Prabhu. So Hare Krishna, thank you so much for being here. And also thank you all of you who are online for being with us today. So I'll start out. It says, Hare Krishna, Rajendranandana Prabhu, otherwise known as Sam Rogers, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and beloved by many devotees around the world, left his body on Tuesday, November 10th at approximately 1:15 p.m. local time in San Diego, California. He was at home and being lovingly cared for by his wife's son and many fellow devotees. Rajendranandana Prabhu's health had been failing for some time. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was diagnosed with terminal spinal cancer. He was given 3 months to live. In the Vaishnava fashion so typical of Rajendranandana Prabhu, Raj Prabhu, he took the diagnosis as Krishna's mercy and began to prepare himself for this final test. By the merciful arrangement of the Supreme Lord, he passed away within 2 weeks instead of the projected several months. Rajendranandana Prabhu was speaking unto the last day and a half in spite of his condition, sharing Krishna Katha and sweet exchanges with devotees who came to offer their respects. At one point, he asked his caretaker, this is when his caretaker, Jagadananda, was with him just alone, but he said to him, why are there so many people in the room? Although only Raj Prabhu and his caretaker were there at the time, the caretaker, Jagadananda Prabhu, inquired, are they good people? And Raj Prabhu smiled and said softly, oh yes. So there's many other beings that are appreciating Rajendranandana Prabhu and his service to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. Rajendranandana Prabhu left his body hearing a kirtan by Srila Prabhupada. Although he had not been speaking for a day and a half, with his last breath, he chanted Krishna's holy names, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Rajendranandana Prabhu joined ISKCON in the mid-1970s and initially served at ISKCON School, Gurukul in Dallas, Texas. Amongst his many services over the years, he served as the temple president of San Diego, here in his hometown of New Govardhan, and then as president of the temple in Honolulu, Hawaii. In recent years, he and his family spent much of their time at ISKCON Mayapur, where he was much beloved by all the local devotees there too. Srila Prabhupada was asked by a disciple, after the disciple's devotee friend had recently passed away, this is what the devotee asked, I know the philosophy, I know that the body is temporary and the soul is eternal. Still, I'm feeling sad. Srila Prabhupada replied, after all, we are not dull stones. We naturally miss the association of devotees we have known and loved. Rajendranandana Prabhu will be sorely missed by devotees around the world, and that is how it should be. He lived an exemplary devotional life. He was always full of affection, philosophy, blissful details about the Leelas of the Lord and his devotees, and encouragement, and, when needed, some words of gentle chastisement. His was a life lived nobly. We are certain that he has either gone directly back to Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan or to join Srila Prabhupada somewhere else to help his beloved spiritual master give Krishna consciousness to the conditioned souls. And then, in conclusion, your servant, Badri Narayan Swami. So, from here, what we'll do is we've got Tapas Prabhu, who's our wonderful IT director, has a video set up that we can watch of Rajendranandana Prabhu giving memories about Srila Prabhupada. It's about a 10-minute clip, and then from there we'll go on to share our memories of our dear Rajendranandana Prabhu, or dear Raj. Okay, Tapas Prabhu, please.
So, one morning when Srila Prabhupada woke up, this is a nice pastime exhibiting, as we all know is the fact. The pure devotee is not under the influence of the modes of material nature. When he sleeps, it's not in ignorance. It's just another time when he is engaged in Krishna's service. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, and Srila Prabhupada woke up, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj helped raise him up, and then immediately Prabhupada began preaching very enthusiastically with a loud voice, saying, I want you to go to the West and preach. Ask these people, do you want to grow old? No. You are forced to grow old. Do you think I want to get old? Nobody wants to grow old, but this is the laws of nature. You are forced. You must surrender to Krishna if you want to become free of this birth, death, disease, and old age. So seeing Srila Prabhupada wake up, and in 1 second, in one moment, preaching on the transcendental platform, and to my contaminated vision, it looked like he had been meditating this way during his sleep, how he would be preaching, how he wanted his disciples to carry on. And I remember one pastime where I was in the garden. We were reading from, after chanting, reading from first canto Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'd forgotten exactly what verse it was, but they were reading the Sanskrit translation verse and purport. And they read the word for words and came to the word Muni. And we all know what Muni means. Well, the word for word translation was a verb. It wasn't a noun. Muni being a person, a sadhu, a thoughtful person. It was a verb. And Srila Prabhupada said, read that again. And so they read Muni and said the verb that was there. And he said, who has done this? And then the devotees realized, who has changed this? Who is that rascal? And of course, some Prabhu's name was mentioned. He said, this will ruin our movement. You change one word on my books and it can ruin the movement. And he was so emphatic and heavy about this point. And of course, I want it to be understood as I understand it anyway. I share that. I don't want it to be misunderstood what I'm saying. I offer all respects to the Prabhus who have service doing the books, who are editors, who've been given that service by Srila Prabhupada. Dravida Prabhu in particular was mentioned today, glorified appropriately. But what I understood is we can't change the message of the spiritual master. There's such a great danger in that. Don't change anything, and we all know that instruction of Srila Prabhupada, and I got to see personally how fiery Srila Prabhupada was in making this point. Some of his godbrothers and Gaudiya Mat sannyasis came to visit him in his room. By this time, he was simply lying down on the bed, basically just laying on the bed. He would ask to be turned over. He had not eaten for a long, long time. He had said, now I am finished with eating. I've conquered sleeping. There's no question of sex life. Now all material activities finished. And he also asked the devotees, why do you pray for me to stay? This bag of bones is useless. Devotees don't like to see the film of his last day. They don't really like to see so many pictures of Srila Prabhupada in these Antya Leela. But this is the Goswami that our spiritual master was. He stayed here for us, only so we would develop more and more attachment to him. He said as much to Bhavananda Maharaj at the time. It is my duty to draw this attachment from you, for me. But the pastime I was going to say, the sannyasis came, and Srila Prabhupada was asked to be propped up on the pillow, and he said, please excuse my not being able to properly receive you. And there were some exchanges there. And he said, please forgive me for all my offenses. He said, sometimes in preaching there are some strong words that are spoken, and I would like to ask for forgiveness. And of course, they appropriately responded, no, there's been no offense. The offense is ours. Please forgive us. And then they began talking in Bengali. And later I asked one Bengali devotee, one devotee who spoke Bengali, what did he say? And I believed what he shared with me because it was in the same mood. But he said, also please forgive my devotees. Sometimes they think they're the only devotees. I've had time to teach them prachar, but not achar, meaning preaching. That is the essence. What else could he do in the short time that he had with us? He had to send out this army of monkeys and simply ask us to spread the glories of Lord Chaitanya via book distribution, Harinam, and all the other wonderful activities of ISKCON. But he said, I didn't have time to preach them the etiquette, so sometimes we are very rusty in that regard, and not so good. But anyway, the humility is what I am making the point of trying to glorify Srila Prabhupada. No offense on his part. Every move, every thought, every word dictated by the Supreme Lord, and only out of compassion for us was he remaining here in those last months. And sometimes, raised a Christian, they say, oh, they glorify Jesus Christ, he died for our sins. Because my love was really secured for Srila Prabhupada during those last months. I like to think how actually his glories is that he kindly chose to stay with us longer than it was certainly convenient. Maharaj Radhanath Swami was talking about the sacrifices he made. It's nice to hear how many devotees, there are a number of devotees who were here in the last days, but anybody who saw or heard Kaviraj, the doctor, saying, simply lying on the bed with no body fat left from not eating, it was like the nerves, it was like being on fire. Just the skin and the nerves rubbing against the bone. Did Srila Prabhupada complain once? No. Did he ask for morphine for the pain? No. He simply wanted to be with his devotees and have us chant Hare Krishna. And I do have to squeeze this in. It was mentioned, but to me it's such an important aspect of Srila Prabhupada's love for us, all of us. He wanted all of us to be here for this passing. He asked that, the instruction was given, we readied canopies on top of the Gurukula building, Fogo Ashram there. He wanted all of his disciples to be with him. He loves us so much. He doesn't forget any single service. We've heard the most insignificant things that we've done, devotees shared that they've done for Prabhupada in his Jai. And that is Srila Prabhupada. How can we give up his service? How can we turn away from him or forget him? We owe him everything. Thank you. A couple of brothers, some Brahmins who were engaged in Hyderabad when the temple was first set up, the deities were installed. South Indian Brahmins, and Srila Prabhupada had told Yasodananda and Achyutananda Swamis to treat them very nicely because they're real Brahmins. Give them anything they want. So in 1977, early in 1977 is when the Murti of Srila Prabhupada was first made. And what is unusual about this is that generally when the spiritual master is on the planet, you don't install his Murti in the temple because everybody comes. I was in Vrindavan at the time, and so many people, I'm sure today, same experiences there, they will come up and they feel they're meeting Srila Prabhupada, that he's sitting on the Vyasasan, as he truly is. In Vrindavan, sometimes we would see people talk to him, say prayers, bow down to him, and realize then, oh my goodness, this is the Murti of Srila Prabhupada. But Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya, when he heard that this was taking place, that Srila Prabhupada's Murti was going to be installed in Bombay and Vrindavan and so many different temples around the world,
at his personal expense, he traveled from Hyderabad, from South India to Bombay, and he wanted to communicate to Srila Prabhupada the Shastric evidence that this is not encouraged at all. Why? Because everybody will come to worship you, they will touch your lotus feet, the Murti's lotus feet. In this way you will take on so much karma from the people and you will have to suffer for this. And he gave so many Shastric references, gave it his best, and this was a learned Brahmin. He gave quite a presentation. It was out of affection for Srila Prabhupada. He was really wanting to do him service in this way. And after Prabhupada patiently listened to him, he finally said, "Don't you understand? That's why I've come." And when Bhattacharya heard this, he immediately stopped, folded his hands, circumambulated Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada 3 times, and then he left. He finally got who Srila Prabhupada was.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, that was really beautiful to hear Rajendranandana giving those memories about Srila Prabhupada. And he continued to share wonderful memories of Srila Prabhupada and preach his message throughout his whole life. So that's the Rajendranandana Prabhu we see there is the same, loving Rajendranandana Prabhu that unfortunately has left us. So for us, unfortunate for us, but fortunate for him. So the next part of the program is we'd love to, have everyone, share their memories about Rajendranandana Prabhu and glorify him. And we'd like to, Bhadranarayan Swami, would you like to speak?
Sit in that chair, okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've got the mic just in case somebody... Let me miss... Okay.
Hey, Govind. Yeah. Thanks, Prabhu. So I sent out a sad notice to the GBC, that's our ISKCON's governing body, after Raj had left his body. And what I'm going to read are the short messages that were sent back. They were posted. This was for senior sannyasis and leaders all over ISKCON. Their remembrances of Rajendranandana Prabhu. So the first was by Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, who is this year's chair of the International GBC. And I mention that because as you see, this is a list of very senior and mature devotees and how they were all impacted by Rajendranandana and loved him and associated with him. And he had a very large influence. He was a humble, saintly, simple devotee. But he actually had a very large impact. So I'll just read these. So this is by Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, the chair of the International GBC this year. I used to associate with him in Mayapur every year, particularly on Navadvip Parikram. We had wonderful association. He was completely absorbed in the Parikram, the Dham and Srila Prabhupada. He was always very friendly and warm, and I never heard him criticize anyone. A real gem of a devotee. This is from Bir Krishna Maharaj, another member of the ISKCON's governing body. His Grace Rajendranandana Dasa served as the temple president in Hawaii when I was the GBC there. I can state unequivocally that he was one of the most blissful, Krishna-conscious persons I've ever had the honor to work with. Certainly Srila Prabhupada is taking his hand as he progresses towards his final destination. This is Kavi Chandra Maharaj. Now, Kavi Chandra Maharaj, he won't mind me saying this. he can be pretty stern. He said his nickname before he became a devotee was Mean Gus. He told me that one. So he can be pretty rigid. But here's what he says. He says, he was my best buddy on parikram. He was always joyful and full of blissful Gora Katha. He always grabbed the Panchatattva ghee lamp and took it all around. Rajendrananda could make even me laugh. Which devotees who know him, that's a real test. And Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj, who's also a member of the GBC, responded, he could make even me laugh, and I was born in Germany. Which is pretty blissful. This is from Bhakti Marg Maharaj, who's the GBC for Canada and Cuba and a couple other places. So he wrote a little poem. Bhakti Marg Maharaj is the walking sannyasi who's should be sponsored by Nike. I don't know how many pairs of shoes he's gone through, but it didn't matter what was the occasion. He was always a man of bhakti contagion, an anti-Kali personality in touch with the ultimate reality. A guy with an incredible smile. To see that, you'd walk a long mile. For him, cynicism was a sin. Positivity is what he indulged in. A Prabhupada person all the way. Humble steps, gently breaths made up his day. He was a detailed Leela storyteller, considering all his service a remarkable feller. That's from Bhakti Marg Maharaj. And one of the aspects, we'll all remember, if you were giving a class, especially in Mayapur, there's, so many hundreds, maybe a couple thousand devotees. And Raj was always right in front, always full attentive, following very carefully in the Bhagavatam. And if you made a point, that was a little bit, you could always count on that laugh from Raj that would reverberate across the room. Everyone really appreciated it. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Prabhu, he is the last year's chair of the GBC deputies. Those are senior devotees who help the GBC in developing their resolutions from our annual meeting, things like that. So he writes, Rajendranandana Prabhu was an ideal follower of Srila Prabhupada. He was a kind and gentle soul and a friend of everyone. His smile could melt the hardest hearts like mine. He knew so much about all the places of pilgrimages on Navadvip Parikram. In his mind, he dwelled in Mayapur, and thus left this world in the holy Dham. We have lost the association of one of the greats. I can only pray that I will be able to have his association someday soon. And this is from Nrsingananda Prabhu. He is the chairman of what's called Sabha, and that's the senior devotees around the world who also help the GBC with decisions. They're very valuable. Yeah, anyway, offer advice, offer direction. So he lists the 26 qualities of a devotee. He says, kind to everyone, does not quarrel with anyone. Think of Raj, and then we'll read these qualities. And you'll see, actually, he exemplified all of them. Kind to everyone, does not quarrel with anyone. Fixed in the absolute truth, equal to everyone. Faultless, charitable, mild, clean. Simple, without material possession. Benevolent, peaceful, completely attached to Krishna. Has no material hankering. Meek, steady, self-controlled, does not eat more than required, sane, respectful, humble, grave, compassionate, friendly, poetic, silent, and expert. What was he expert at? Exhibiting the first 25 qualities. How was he a poet? By offering sweet words to everyone. I spoke to him a couple weeks ago. He was gravely and bravely fixed in the absolute truth. A glorious departure to the other side of the curtain. Dandavats pranam, dear friend of all. I forget who told me this, but he was in a lot of pain at a certain stage of his illness and towards his final days. And his caretaker was offering him an herbal painkiller Now, he left his body in 3 or 4 days afterwards. But he asked him, is it addictive? He was, is it intoxicating? He was very careful to the last minute that, And the devotee said, Raj, I really don't think you have to worry about addiction, You got a couple days left, But it just shows his fidelity to Prabhupada's teachings and the standard of a devotee. There's only a few more. This is Madhusevata Prabhu. He's the GBC for France and Italy, some Mediterranean area. If one day we'll be able to go to the Holy Dham again, because now in COVID, we used to go every year. We had our annual general meeting of the GBC was in Mayapur, and then the Mayapur Parikram and so many festivals, and Raj was always in the middle of it, and people look forward to seeing him. So here he's saying, if one day we're able to go to the Holy Dham again, when COVID's over, Mayapur won't be the same without Rajendranandana Prabhu. May he be carrying the Deepa, the lamp, to Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. Because he always was passing, in Mayapur, passing the ghee lamp. So it's a nice analogy that wherever he's going, he's at the lotus feet of Prabhupada and the acharyas and passing the ghee lamp to all of them in their association. This is Pragosh Prabhu. He's the GBC for the British Isles and other places. I knew Rajendranandana Prabhu from Mayapur. He was super sweet with a huge booming laugh. Hard to remember him not asking a question at Srimad Bhagavatam class. And rarely, if ever, did a smile leave his face. One of those people you were always felt so happy to see. And I think this is the last one from Gopal Krishna Maharaj, who, of course, is one of the great heroes, opened so many temples, so many books, he's a member of our ISKCON's governing body. Rajendranandana Prabhu was a good devotee. He was well-versed in philosophy, enthusiastic, and very humble. I used to enjoy his company very much on the Navadvip Mandala Parikram. We're all going to miss his association. So we can end there. One thing, Prabhupada was asked by a devotee. A devotee had passed away, and his friend was feeling the loss of that association. And he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I know the philosophy, we're not this body, I know he's gone back to Godhead, or he's wherever Krishna is appearing, he's there with Krishna. But still, I miss him. And Prabhupada's response was, well, after all, we're not dull stones. We have emotions, we have affections. And the fact of the matter that we all miss Raj, I don't know about the rest of you, but I took it for granted. He'd always be there. He'd always be there, asking a question. He was always there offering good advice. If I did something he thought was out of line, he had no problem picking up the phone. And I was grateful for it, So if we don't miss someone when they've passed away, then what is that? That we miss him and remember him and try to come up to that standard, that's a life well lived. So it's natural that we miss him, and it's good that we feel like that. It's a sign of a life well lived. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Bhadrinarayan Swami, for sharing all that about Rajendranandana Prabhu.
I may be joining him soon.
Hare Krishna. Next, Dravida Prabhu, would you like to share? And what we're going to do is that we're going to have some of the Prabhus here share their memories and honor Rajendranandana Prabhu. And then we actually got a couple more video clips we'll show after that, little 5-minute clips. So we'll kind of intersperse them a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about my ankle. You never know. Hare Krishna. So before I begin, I'd like to offer my obeisance to Rajendranandana Prabhu and all the assembled Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu behevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So I just want to relate two instances that I personally experienced that many of you may not even be aware of. And that is of showing Raj's care and how much he cared for devotees. And both of them involve when he was there specifically for 2 disappearances. The first one was in, I think this was, no, actually the first, chronologically the first one, and you may, many of you may remember this, and that is Radhanath Das, who was a member here for years, incredible devotee who was in a wheelchair for years, and but he would go out every day and distribute books, and he was incredibly determined to continue serving Prabhupada. Wonderful inspiration. So when eventually the time came, it was emergency, he went to the hospital, and they put him on a breathing machine, intubated, so he couldn't speak. But he was awake, and And so Raj would go there, because I went sometimes and I visited him several times, and Rajendranandana Prabhu would always be there. And what the doctors did, I guess in cases like this, they give you a sheet with the alphabet on it, and you can speak that way. You can communicate. And Rajendranandana was there and conversing with him and encouraging him and reading to him and spending hours with Radhanath Prabhu. And then eventually the doctor said, well, it's not terminal, but you're going to be on the machine now. And so you don't have this independence. He had a caretaker in Nisringa. You remember Nisringa? And he lived right across the street, actually, for several years. But it's, that's a new situation for you. And he said, no, forget about it. I'm going to leave. So he decided to go back to Godhead. So and they wanted me to sing. They, for some reason, they asked me to come. This has happened several times. And so I said, well, I'm leaving for Latra on Friday. So I said, okay, let's do it on Thursday. So they all decided, and he came, and Rajendran was there, and we all, sang in Hare Krishna for Radhanath Prabhu when he departed. And the other one was just me and Raj. This was Padmavati. Maybe you remember Padmavati. She had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and so she called me up, and it was Ekadashi. So I'm going to the hospital. This may be it. I can't breathe very well. Like this. So I called Raj. It was as I mentioned, Ekadashi. It was 10 years ago, last January, and so we were both there. It was just us two. We started chanting Hare Krishna. She was there, on the breathing machine. And who walks in but Brajabadu and Ladli. Maybe Ladli's here, remember? And now we're 4 of us singing, we're singing. And then I think Brajabadu had some health issue and you had to leave, and so we kept singing. And eventually what happened, her children had flown in. And they didn't want us to be there. They said, okay, it's time, we're going to pull the plug, And I said, no, it's really, we were trying to convince them it's important that she hears this, and they weren't into it. So we went just around the corner in the waiting room, and it must have maybe 15 minutes. One of her sons came in and said, you better come back. She's not leaving. She won't, I pulled out everything. So we came back and we sang, and within 5 minutes she was gone, And that's just 2 examples. Raj was always caring. I mean, I remember when he went up to see you, and very concerned, and he very much had this soft heart and feeling for all the devotees, and this was just one of his wonderful qualities that endeared him to everybody. And just one note, he was here for a year and about 7 months. I mean, he came at the beginning of 2020. Retired, and we saw him. Sunday came, and he was dancing around. It was amazing, He was dancing like an 18-year-old, and very enthusiastic in kirtan, of course. But what I want to just remind everyone, there are I don't know, dozens of his talks. He gave these wonderful classes here, Bhagavatam classes, for over a year, at least one a week, and eventually two a week, and they're all on YouTube. If I'm not. And we have them recorded.
So you can just click on Rajendranandana, San Diego classes, or get on the thing and you can find out and hear them, plus all of these wonderful talks that he gave on the Parakram. Many of them are recorded. So we can take advantage of his association. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai.
Madhusudana Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. I should just speak from my heart, but I usually forget things, so I got a little assistance here. Better? We met Raj in we first met him in San Francisco. He had just gotten married to Chatura, who we knew from Los Angeles because she was the receptionist at BBT, and I worked there. So when we left LA, it was during the sort of a turbulent time shortly after Prabhupada passed away, so there was a little turbulence in the society. So we left Los Angeles, moved to San Francisco, and we met them there. So that's how the connection was, like through Chatura, and he stayed. He was living there for a little while, and then the both of them moved to Grass Valley. So there was some connection with her sister having a place in Grass Valley because they didn't have much money at the time. Nobody had much money at the time. So they moved to Grass Valley, and right away he sort of became the de facto leader there, not by any force, but spiritual force, let's say. So he invited us up there. We stayed with him for a couple of days, and it was just fantastic. He had programs in his house, and it was a very sweet community, nice devotees, and he was rallying everybody around. So he was like a natural leader. Then, let's see. It was after that we kind of lost touch with them because he went to Hawaii, so we both went sort of different directions. He went to Hawaii. He came here to San Diego, but we were in San Francisco. So we lost touch for a while until we came back to San Diego. So when we saw him again in San Diego, he was actually going back and forth between San Diego and Mayapur. And then we met when he came here, and there were Bhakti Chakra groups meeting, so he was there, and gradually getting more acquainted with him. Always very sweet-natured, jolly, and although very serious and determined in his Krishna consciousness. Over the years, we could see that he was really advancing, particularly when the last year and a half, and like they mentioned that the lectures he was giving were just unbelievable. It was clear that he had taken Krishna into his heart very deeply, and he was full of this spiritual kind of emotions. It wasn't so much, you could see it wasn't just in his head, but it was really in his heart, which meant that at any moment he could break down a little bit, and so anybody could see it. Of course, his chanting and his dancing was just, he really danced like nobody was watching. He was his own, he was on his own in his own world with Krishna. And then, of course, his mentioned his laugh. We listened to the Mayapur memorial for him, and someone described his laugh as a sonic boom laugh. And I thought that was so appropriate, because when he let out this laugh, it was like shocking. Everybody, yeah. So one thing that another thing I appreciated about him was I would come, my wife and I would come and bring the daily sweet for one of the days of the week after the morning program. We'd come about 10 o'clock, and often Raj would still be here, chatting with the brahmacharis. He just loved the brahmacharis. He was really like one of them, so it was nice to see him there. He just was so in his element, and I really had the impression that. And from listening to the Mayapur memorials, that his heart was very much in Mayapur. He came back and forth because he was earning money to keep his household going and to be in Mayapur, and his son was here, so he had to do that. But he just, Mayapur was his place, and you could hear from the devotees the way they talked about him, that that was really what he considered his home. Often he told me that, how much he loved Mayapur, and was encouraging me. Of course, I told him that somehow I'm drawn more to Vrindavan, but that's another story. So we, during the pandemic time, so we would have little gatherings at a devotee's house, Varshana. We'd get together, and I could say that he really loved prasadam. He was not shy about prasadam. So then, about 2 months before he started declining, I was telling him that my health is going downhill, and I have some condition, and I was concerned about, and in my mind I was thinking, I would sure like Raj to be there when because I knew him, the depth of his Krishna consciousness, and I can relate with him nicely. He treated me like a friend, but it wasn't a friend like he had in Mayapur, the twins, or Janani Vas, who he considered his Shiksha guru. So for me, Raj was kind of like my senior inspiration that way, not really like sharing like equals. So in my mind, I was thinking, boy, I wish he would be there. So that's what I was thinking when I told him, and he picked up right away. He said, Madhus, I will be honored to be there and help you when your time comes. Of course, then the shock came, and he actually left. So that, I really wanted to hold him to his promise, but it wasn't possible. So at one time, we went to visit him a couple of times, twice when he was still communicating, hadn't withdrawn. And the first time I said, I didn't know what to say to him, because I just didn't feel like the spiritual inspiration that I should be. But I said to him, Raj, I'm following behind you, knowing my my condition as well. And he said, I wish I could remember the exact words, but he said something like, "Don't take your time." So whatever he said, it was very clear. He was saying, get off your... Even in that condition, he was, he was preaching, dragging me along a little bit. So I just wanted to say that when the doctor, hospice doctor came at one point and said he's not in any pain. But we could see that clearly, that he wasn't in pain and he wasn't in anxiety, because my mother was passing away. I could, really towards the end, I could see her face, even though the same condition, she wasn't communicating, but she had a furrowed brow, and so they gave her something, some morphine or what. But he had nothing, none of that, absolutely nothing. I mean, his breathing was getting gradually labored, but he was not. Well, you remember his face. You was looking at his face, and it was no worry. So I just hope that I know that we're living in sound. We can be living in sound together. So I don't feel. Of course, I don't feel sorry for him. I mean, I'm the one who I feel, who's sad, but I just remember that, like Prabhupada would say, we're living together in sound, in spiritual sound. So as long as I'm Krishna conscious, I know that he'll be there. Jai Raj.
Krishna. Did you want to say anything, or I didn't know, or okay.
Before I start, I just want to say, Chatur wanted me to say that Chatur and Aj send their gratitude and humble obeisances to all of you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Quick, I apologize, but this Kanchabala Prabhu, with Madhusudana's wife, who's speaking. So, Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada's exemplary dedicated disciple, Rajendranandana Prabhu. As I write this, I remember going to the temple the first time after Raj left this world and felt separation from such a great devotee amongst us. He was conspicuous by his absence of his vibrant self from the weeks, months before, yet at the same time feel happy for him who gloriously attained perfection. As one devotee said, he successfully crossed the finish line. He got his ticket. From an honest and true place, I always saw he was such a devotee. Besides his intense seriousness in devotional service, I could really see all the more as years went on. He was seeing the positiveness of any individual's sincerity, no matter where they were at. From his joyfulness in Krishna consciousness and devotional service to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, not judging, but was always respectful, caring, encouraging, compassionate to others, truly the many decorations of a genuine devotee. I have and do look up to both Rajendranandana Prabhu and his wonderful devoted Krishna conscious wife, Chatur, and am so grateful for their association. One time I said to Raj, "Thank you for being my husband's devotee friend." And he said, "We are all friends." I really felt and feel it was Srila Prabhupada's mercy to be associated amongst such a great Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada creating a spiritual family for all of us. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
I just got something from to read for Radhapriya Dasi. Hare Krishna. My name is Radhapriya Dasi. Rajendranandana Prabhu was responsible for me originally staying in San Diego, for which I am very grateful to him. I came at the beginning of 1994 to stay at the ashram when he was the temple president, and Aja was a little boy of around 5 years of age. I joined in 1985 and have been living in the ashram since, in Spain, at the farm, and the Barcelona temple, and at the Corsica temple in Peru, whenever I visited my family. So when I stopped here, I had the idea that there was a brahmacharini facility in every temple around the world. To my surprise, there wasn't any, so at Mother Karnamrita's request, I stayed at her home. But just a couple of days after, Raj Prabhu rented an apartment down the street, a couple of homes from the building next door, where Lavanya Manjari, then Bhakti and Lori, and I could live. And that's how the Brahmacharini ashram got reopened, and it remained open for many good years. So it's thanks to Raj Prabhu's vision and kindness that many Matajis like me got the opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness and serve Sri Sri Radha Giridhari and their devotees in the capacity of temple devotees here. He was always a gentleman who, as we all know, loved Srila Prabhupada and his movement with all his heart. Dear Chatur and dear Aja, Yudhisthira and I couldn't be here today, but our hearts are with you. All glories to Rajendranandana Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you so much, Kanchabala. And I was going to add real quick from Dravida Prabhu's Dravida Prabhu's nice sharing of memories and honoring Rajendranandana Prabhu. Tapas just told me there's almost 150 lectures that are on ISKCON San Diego's website that you can click onto. So I wanted to clarify a little more on that. So thank you for sharing everything. Okay. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Hare Krishna. Shri Gurudeva, Shri Shri Baladev, Subhadra, Hare Krishna. Okay, Pavamana Prabhu, would you like to say a few words? Okay. Also, we want to thank Guru Krishna Prabhu's putting a beautiful garland. He offered a garland to Srila Prabhupada here on a Vyasasana, and then a nice garland for Rajendranandana Prabhu. But Guru Krishna Prabhu is another beloved member of our community, and he's got a forest of plumerias. Like we call it Plumeria Loka. Him and his wife, it's like a Shweta Dweep. It's another transcendental abode, and he always brings flowers from there to offer to Srila Prabhupada, their lordships, and now for Rajendranandana Prabhu. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
I think he has the biggest plumeria tree in the world or something like that. At least in San Diego, anyway. Hare Krishna. So I just wrote this real fast. My memory is practically gone, but I just tried to remember some things. I believe I met him first in the early 1990s, though I'm not really sure. My wife and I had gone to India for about 6 months, and I believe that at some point he became the temple president. He used to encourage me in my service because I was working every day and I was just newly married and kind of missing the ashram life. He was always helpful and uplifting. Once we had a play directed by Her Grace Rasapriya Mataji, and Raj became Indradumna. So after that, every time I would see him say, Indradumna, if any of the devotees who know that play that we did. I was the priest Vidyapati, so I was his understudy, I guess, or whatever you call it. But I think about 24 devotees played various parts. It was a wonderful experience. later on, he moved to Hawaii, and I believe he became the president there. He moved there because Chitura's health was not so good, and she needed a change climate. He was very capable of leadership, and I believe he was a Gurukul teacher in Vrindavan. Am I correct? I think so. Yeah, Gurukul teacher. Not sure that. I'm sorry? Is it better? Okay. I can't read anything. So I know there were some Gurukulis. When it was announced on Facebook, they were saying how much they appreciated his being a teacher there. He was certainly no wallflower, but he didn't get into politics and making offenses and criticizing people. He was very keen to help the devotees. I know many people have mentioned this, offering counseling and advice. And he was always attentive. If you had a problem, he was always ready to listen and give you some encouragement and leadership. He didn't like the COVID situation. He was unhappy to see the brahmacharis having to wear a mask all day. That really irritated him. He maintained his household doing county fairs, selling various items. I remember him selling Happy Feet. Remember that Happy Feet? He'd come to San Diego and do the Del Mar Fair, and I used to like to go and see him over there. His skill and talent for selling things was unmatched. There was no one who could touch him. And one time, my wife and I went to the Orange County Fair for some reason, and he was there. And what he would do is, I mean, he'd create a whole scene. He'd gather people around, and he'd be selling to this person over here while bringing this other person in. You can ask Vishwamitra, because Vishwamitra used to do that kind of thing. He's one of the devotees, but he was very well liked by his superiors because he was so good at it. He just had a natural knack for kind of being a carny like that. He enjoyed it very much. But it was not easy. If you've ever done a county fair, and I remember years ago, we had a booth at the county fair, and the hours are grueling. The morning till late at night, and he barely had time. He would get up in the morning, never missed it, would chant all his rounds and work all day to the late at night. It was very, very difficult. And he would go from fair to fair to fair. So it was physically very demanding. But then after that, he would go off to Mayapur and spend a few weeks over there, or months. Our family was not real close with their family, but we would get together sometimes, and I think Madhus mentioned that. Towards the end, when he was retired, we would get together at, what was her name? Varshana's house. That was totally wonderful. He came to my last birthday party this year in June, and he said it was one of the most blissful parties that he'd been to. He had, I made pizza, and we had some bhajans, and he was very blissful. He liked that. Made me feel good. He was expert at Mayapur. I mean, it's always been mentioned. I remember years ago in what's now, I guess, is a go down. There used to be a brahmacharya ashram, the building that's next to the driveway back there. And he was giving classes on Mayapur, just explaining all about it. He was just totally absorbed. He knew all the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Then in those days when he was still working and going to Mayapur, he would, as I mentioned, he would hang out with Pankajangri and Janani Vas and the other devotees there. He just relished the whole thing. So, as it was, sometimes he would be in town, sometimes he wouldn't. I never knew where, and he lived in various places, mostly around the Ocean Beach, but sometimes in, I guess it was South Park or something. Anyway, his home situation was very, very simple. He actually had a very small apartment, like a one-bedroom apartment, and with his wife and son and Srila Prabhupada. Life-size Murti of Srila Prabhupada was always there. And it's always, he just loved that. He very scrutinizingly studied Srila Prabhupada's books. And I could not see anything else that he occupied himself doing. I mean, it's not like he had some hobby or some other thing on the side that he was doing. It was very, very simple, very uncomplicated that way. One time we had a chakra meeting at his house, and the place was really small, and there was a lot of devotees there. So, I mean, do you remember that? It was packed. And he had a neighbor next door that came. Remember that? You just remember. And he was just saying, I don't know much about what you're doing, but you're all very sincere and very, convinced. And he was very glad to have come. So he was an ideal family man. He was always taking care of his wife and his son, and they were very close, very, very close. I don't have to even mention it if you know what the situation was. Always very concerned on every level for every person, and of course that meant his family especially. He was not neglectful. He was very much, at the same time, he was very much detached. Srila Prabhupada in his life, when it came time to marry, that he wanted to marry this person over here, but they fixed him up with somebody else who didn't want, and his father said, better to accept this one that you don't really like. It'll be easier to become detached later on. Okay. Make no comment. But in his case, it was not necessary, because at the whole time, he was very attentive, but not overly attached. So he was, and I can't even, how can you say something was very obvious that in every aspect, he fit all those categories of being a pure devotee. He was a pure Vaishnava. There's no question about it. Of course, everybody knows his big smile and like explosive laughing and ecstatic dancing in kirtan. He was no foot shuffler. He would dance around in circles and twirl around and everything, and try to bring you in, right? He didn't want to, like me, I'm just a shuffler. He was a real person, full of life and devotion to Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And of course, his departure is a shock. We'd all become accustomed to having this association. You just kind of, you always think it's going to be there. And then, I wanted to go and visit because this is my busy season. I didn't want to intrude. I didn't want to be in the way. And of course, we were told that it was going to take, maybe a few months. We were told, maybe a gradual decline. We had no idea. So there were days when I wanted to go over there, but again, didn't want to, impose on anyone. But unfortunately, at the end, I was not able to. I wanted to read to him or send him some tapes that I'd made. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I was able to be there the day before, and we all gathered and sang some bhajans. We did, some pujas and stuff like that. So at least I got a chance to sing for him. So, yeah. The important thing is to take advantage of the association while we have it. And amongst ourselves, we know, we hear it all the time, but we're all thinking, I'm going to be around forever. We think everybody's going to be around forever. Well, sadly, at any time, we can leave. So we should, amongst ourselves, appreciate the association and not take anything for granted. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you very much, Pavamana Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay, so what we're thinking is Yudhishthira Prabhu, could you say a few words? And then after Yudhishthira Prabhu, we've got Vaisheshika Prabhu, who has a nice video of Rajendra. He wanted to say a few words and share that. It's about 5 minutes. And Damodar from our farm up here has a short video, 3 minutes. He wants to say a few words. And then we'll come back to everyone here. And it's so wonderful that you're all here, and there's so many of us here. And we're going to do the best we can to give everyone an opportunity to speak, although time's getting a little tighter. But we'll do the best we can. And we've also got some individuals who are online that would like to say a few words. So we're going to go from there. Okay, thank you.
First of all, Jagannananda Prabhu, who took care of Raj and Chatura and the family. I mean, he was there the whole time, running, full Rajagun mode, taking care of business, and he really made it easy for everyone there. And he called me before and asked if I would just say a few of the pastimes. Some of them are duplicated, but I'll say his version, but I'll say it real quick, so because I know that we're pressed for time. He was at one point. I hope I can read my own writing.
Yudhishthira Prabhu, don't feel too rushed. We know you have a lot of sweet things to share. But
okay.
Yeah, okay.
So at one point, as Raj was slowly going kind of internal at towards that last week, and he so this was when he was still speaking, but it was slowing down. Probably it was the Friday before or somewhere around then, and that was when, as Bhadra Narayan Maharaj said, he said, "Do you see everybody that's around?" And he said, "No." And anyway, I can't read my writing. I'm sorry. Do you see all the? Oh no, this is a different one. He said, "Did you?" Raj had Bhaktivinoda Thakur on the wall, Prabhupada, a couple of Prabhupads. He was surrounded by Krishna, and he was just, the days before, he was just staring at him, and Jagannananda told me that he was talking to them all, but he couldn't understand the words. He would just be, like talking and talking. And at one point he said, "You see all the direct decorations on Bhaktivinoda Thakur, around Bhaktivinoda Thakur?" And Jagannananda said, "No." And he said, "Okay," but he was seeing these decorations, just like Maharaj said about how he was seeing, at one point when Jagannananda and Chatura were the only ones in the room, and he said, he asked if, if you see all these people, as Maharaj said, and they said no, and he asked, "Are they nice?" And Raj he smiled and said, "Yeah," like he was feeling it. And then another thing he wanted to tell me to say was, in the middle of the night, I think Mukunda was there and Amoga were there, I believe. There was another brahmachari there, and that was probably, I don't know what night, but then he said, that was probably Friday night or Saturday or something, one of those nights. But anyway, he was very restless, and he hadn't slept for like the whole day and whole night. So they were thinking, Jagannananda was thinking he had the morphine and the anti-anxiety, but Raj hadn't been taking them. And the doctors were surprised because he should have been in a really heavy pain, but he wasn't. I asked him at one point, I said, are you comfortable, Raj? This was a few days before he left, and he said, my legs hurt a little bit, but he was taking ibuprofen, and they had to talk him into that. He didn't want to take any drugs, And so, Jagannananda, he wasn't really speaking, and so he said, "I'm going to give you a little bit of this anti-anxiety drug, medicine that the doctors gave." And so Raj didn't say anything, and he put it up to his mouth and his hand, and Raj pushed it away. And then he spoke again, and he said, "Is this addictive?" And Raj, and they said, Jagannananda said, "It's not like you're going to be around for taking it for 15 years." And Raj laughed. And then he took it, and he slept, and it was good because he, like I said, he'd been up for a long time. And then the third one is that it was on Prabhupada's appearance day, and we were all thinking, everyone was thinking, well, maybe, this would be the time he would leave. He was there when Prabhupada left, and he said, so he decided about late that morning that he wasn't going to take any more water or anything anymore. In other words, he was ready to go. About 6 hours later, he asked Jagadananda. He said, I don't know who was, if it was just Jagadananda there, but he asked him he said, do you think I'm making an offense to Prabhupada? Because my body belongs to him, and I'm not giving it water, And they said, no. He said, and Jagadananda told him, he said, you're in fifth gear right now. I don't think it really matters at this point. And he said, okay. And he kept going on that water thing. And Jagadananda wanted me to express that he was, he'd seen a few older godbrothers that he really respected that left, but he was always out of the country. And when he actually called, he'd known Chatura and Raj. They helped him when he was a very young devotee. And so he called and said, can I come and be the guy that takes care of everything? And they said, yes, come, And so he just wanted to express what an honor that was for him and how grateful he was. And so we should all send our blessings and gratitude to Jagadananda Prabhu. So I've known Raj for about 30 years, and we were especially really close when we did those Bhakti Chakra groups, those home groups, and all those events for that 8 years. And Raj was really, when these devotees leave, I always have the same thing where I think I didn't realize how important they were in my life. I thought they were just my friends, And Raj he would instruct me a lot, but like Madhu said, it wasn't, he was, as a friend, he'd instruct me. And then I would, he was my sounding board. And I used to not like when he left for Mayapur, because that means he wouldn't be at the Tuesday group, and I wouldn't be, I was always trying, every other thing, I was always calling him and trying to talk him into going, but, he would go to the morning program, so he didn't want to go to everything. And so if I would have, this is, night of kirtan, you got to come, Raj, we really need you. And he would come, and it was really, I felt more protected when he was there, because, he was the spirit, they say the purity and the force, and he was the purity, and I was the farce. So, but he would, we were very close during that time, and then during the last year of this COVID thing, I wasn't so close, but we would talk during festivals. We'd call each other, like if it was Gaur Purnim or something like that, or Nishinga's appearance day. Because back then, all the time, if it was Nishinga's, we would get together and read, and and Raj took these things. He taught me how to take them seriously. He also taught me about Mayapur, and I started going there because of him. And I remember one of the best days of my life is he would have lunch with the twins, with Janani Vas and Pankajangri, and they would have nothing but Nishingadev Prasadam. And he invited me, and I would sit in there, and I'd eat with just him and the twins, and it was all Nishinga Prasad. I thought, kill me now, Krishna, kill me now. And he reminds me of that verse, the one about, O Sanatan, kindness to all living entities, service to the Vaishnavas, and taste for the holy names, He wasn't only kind to the Vaishnavas, he was kind to everybody, Raj. And after he left, I was putting a lot of photos up, and because I have a lot of photos from the chakra groups and the events, and I finally hit me at a certain point that I put hundreds up, and every photo, Raj was happy and smiling. And I thought, why didn't I notice this before? I just thought he was my good friend, and then in the end, he asked me, he said, you just come as much as you can. So, I was there, and I read to him a couple days, and then the last few days I was there, and excuse me. The brahmacharis were there. They were bringing prasadam to him every day. And this was at the mood of Raj, serving the Vaishnavas. And at one point that Friday, which was the last day that he was speaking, it was Govardhan Puja, and I was reading Narottam Das Thakur book and about the advent of Govardhan to him. And I remember I was reading it, and I was feeling such deep emotion about it. And I knew this wasn't characteristic of me, and I knew that this was kind of like osmosis from Raj, like Madhus was saying, that he had this deep love, and he had entered the Ras, really. I had realized after I saw his glorious departure, or we noted his glorious departure. But I remember I was really moved, and I went up to him. I was leaving, and I hugged him very gingerly, of course, because he was very fragile. And I told him, Raj, I always thought you were my friend, but now I see who you really are. And he teared up, and he said, then he gave me a kind of an instruction I didn't understand, and it's still sinking in. He said, that was Ras. He said, the other is explanation of Ra, And he said that twice to me, just really intensely, And then he told me to please come as much as I can, And so the last few days, I was there, and he, and he went internal, and it was very far out. It was something that I'd seen other people before they left, but. Like I'd catch his eye, and it was really just far out. And we were playing, we knew somehow or other that he was internalizing and shutting down, but because he was absorbed, So we were playing Prabhupada chanting, sometimes japa, but most time a kirtan, but very low. And then we would respond chanting to Raj, and he would move sometimes like he wanted to dance, And I remember just feeling like he was there, and I was a little question, should we be just leaving him to his own? Later on, that was confirmed by Janani Bas at the Mayapur Memorial, and he was saying how, he said, Raj, his senses shut down. He had shut down his senses, and he said, like Prabhupada did, and Janani Bas said this, and I thought, see. Then I didn't feel bad, because I was thinking maybe I should have been talking to him more, but we would acknowledge, and we would chant with him, and at one point, devotees decided we should, read glorifications of Raj from the devotees off the internet, and so we started reading, and Jatura was immediately, no, he won't like that, and I felt the same way, but I wasn't the guys running things, and I didn't want to intrude, but I was thinking, this is not good, because Raj, even at his birthday parties, he would go around and praise everyone in the room, and so when I watched him, and he was going like this when they started doing it. He was moving his head no. And I thought, should I say something? And this was an older friend of his, their devotees, and it was all well intended. There was no fault finding there. They wanted him to know how much everybody loved him, But finally, Chatura came in and said, no, this has to stop, And I was glad, because I saw him. He was reacting, and he didn't like it. He was absorbed in Krishna, so and then the brahmacharis were there, we were there, everybody was, his breathing had gotten very belabored and short, and we knew he was leaving any time, and everyone was there. Damodar sat or Mukunda sat at the end of his bed, very still, like yogi for days, Everybody wanted to be there when this fabulous monumental event that someone's leaving the material world from Ocean Beach, of all places, the armpit of America. Just joking. So, Jagannatha, we said, let's take a walk, and we took a walk. The brahmacharis went and got prasadam, And Raj pulled a fast one on all of us. It's a tour, and this Mataji Jai. Yeah, no, Jayeshwari, but there was another Mataji Jai who was old friends of theirs. Leela Shakti was there, and Jayeshwari saw this. Jayeshwari came in and they saw that he said Krishna. He mouthed Krishna, Krishna, Ram, and left. You know, yeah. Raj had been prepared already for this when it came, you know. When he called me from the hospital, you know, when he found out, and he called me, and we hadn't talked in a while, and he said, first thing he said to me, he says, I have my ticket, I'm in line, I'm going back to Godhead. I said, what's going on, Raj? And the second thing he said, he goes, you know, I got kind of too far wrapped up in current affairs for a little bit here. And he says, but that's finished, you know. So I think if there was any anartha with Raj, that was his last one to get rid of, you know. But he told me that. Then he said, he asked me to do a post on Facebook, you know, like I used to do for Gunagraj Maharaj and different devotees. And he said, but wait on it, you know. And then he said, and then he called me a couple days later and asked me to do it. He said, but I don't want the devotees to ask devotees to pray for my health. He said, I want that they pray that I'll be able to follow what Prabhupada wants me to do, or to give me strength, you know. And that's, you know, Raj is a superstar, a spiritual superstar. You know, he showed us how to live, he showed us how to go. You know, it can be done, he did it. And he did it short and fast. You know, I've been with devotees a long time, and it seems to, you know, this is of course speculation on my part, so please forgive me, but, you know, I believe that, you know, Krishna will keep the devotee there, and those last moments are so intense that he really squeezes the surrender out of you, you know, because of Prabhupada, Lord Nityananda's mercy, and Raj didn't need that, you know. It was 2 weeks, and he was off to be with Krishna, you know. So anyway, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Yudhishthira Prabhu. So what we're going to do now, Tapas Prabhu, you want to play what Vaisheshika Prabhu wanted to share, and Damodar wanted to share, and then we'll have some more opportunity to honor Rajendranandana Prabhu.
I'm mourning the disappearance of my dear friend and godbrother Rajendranandana Prabhu, and joining with all of you in the grieving process. Srila Ramananda Roy told Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that the only lamentable aspect of life for a devotee is separation from the Vaishnava. And Rajendranandana Prabhu was a Vaishnava through and through, to the very core. When I saw him most recently for our yatra, which he used to attend every year, and bring life because of his mood of intense hearing and chanting and pure devotion and his jovial nature, he said, Vaisheshika, I just want to hear. He reached this level of intense greed for hearing about Krishna. Anytime we were together, the topic turned to Krishna Katha because of Rajendranandana Prabhu. And when he was on our yatras, he was constantly studying the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna so that he could speak about them to others. I spent time with Rajendranandana Prabhu when he was the Pujari in St. Louis, Missouri, and we kept in touch through the years, sparingly, but then came together very closely again over the last 4 years on our yatras. And I feel that Rajendranandana Prabhu was so ready to leave the world. Of course, we always wish we were more ready, but his mood was so intense in that he was constantly thinking about how to spread Krishna consciousness, how to be in the Dham, how to take association of devotees, and especially how to serve the Vaishnavas. That was his number one preoccupation. That when I heard about his passing and how he chanted in his last breath, I wasn't surprised, because he was on that level. We've lost such a great soul in Rajendranandana Prabhu. Dear Raj Prabhu, I miss you so much. I pray to be with you again on the yatras in the Dham, serving Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. Thank you for all you did for me and for all the devotees, and all glories to your service, and all glories to the exemplary way in which you passed from the world. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vaisheshekha Prabhu, for sharing that with us. Hare Krishna. So you have the other video?
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachayane Nirvishesha Srimivadi Paschatya Deshapayane. On this day of His Grace Rajendranandana Prabhu's memorial, I just wanted to take this opportunity to convey my heartfelt respects and gratitude to him. I feel like myself, one out of many, have been impacted by his kindness and compassion, whether in the ashram or in the greater Nagovardhan community or devotees worldwide. He was such a person who valued personal relationships, and anyone who really knew him felt that he had genuine care and concern. And so there's so many things to say about a devotee like him, but I just wanted to share a couple of things that really, that I found inspirational. One was him being a person that devotees could confide in. I feel like he served as a mentor figure, as a shiksha in so many of our lives. That it didn't matter any time of the day it was, he was always available, and I feel like devotees felt like they could confide in him and trust him with, some of the deepest things that they were going through, whether it was on a personal level or a management level or anything. He was somebody willing to talk about whatever it may be, and he gave such pertinent, balanced advice. And I think what really made him different as a shiksha figure was that he was always just so raw and genuine. He had a lot of personal integrity, and he was very unbiased. If something was a certain way and he didn't feel right about it, or he wasn't going to side with anybody, he was just going to say it as it was. And I always appreciated that about him, because it's rare to find people like that. I appreciate his genuine humility. Oftentimes, as we all know, before classes, he would really pray to the devotees and to the Guru Parampara for empowerment. And it was very sincere, because he would just literally beg and genuinely, for blessings, and he really imbibed that spirit, which I think was so exemplary. I felt like he had so much fidelity and commitment, dedication to just serving Prabhupada and the movement of the devotees, that he can feel it in his talks, in his lectures. You can feel his convictions and his faith in Krishna and the process of Krishna consciousness emanating through his words. So yeah, in so many ways he's been such a inspiration to so many of us, and I know that anywhere discussions of Sri Shravada Giridhari's dear devotees or Sri Panchatattva's dear devotees, he will be mentioned, and I'm profoundly grateful to have had interacted with him and had a relationship with him. And I continue to pray for his blessings. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Damodar Kumar Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, yeah, I've got one offering that was emailed to me that it's a quick but sweet offering that I wanted to read to everyone here. And this is from we have two Yudhishthira Prabhus. And sometimes we say big Yudi, little Yudi, but they're both Maharatis. Yudhishthira Prabhu sent this letter. His wife's offering was read a little bit earlier. But here's what he had to say for our Rajendranandana Prabhu. He said, Hare Krishna. By Krishna's mercy, I was fortunate to have had Rajendranandana Prabhu's association for many years. He was both a friend and a mentor. He knew me since I was a brahmachari, and as a San Diego Temple president, later he co-officiated with Dharma Setu Prabhu my and Radha Priya's wedding. He was always very personal and shared his feelings freely. Whatever he did, he held nothing back. That's the way he gave class, chanted and danced in kirtan, embraced you and corrected you. And of course, he held nothing back when he laughed. He had the most joyful and memorable laugh. He was one of the pillars of the San Diego community, and many turned to him for guidance and advice. His sincerity and heartfelt devotion always made an impact on you. I will always be thankful to have been blessed with the association of such a rare and great soul. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai. And then Prahlada Priya is here visiting, and he would like to say a few words. Prahlada Priya is also, he's been away for a little while, but we consider him a part of our devotee family here. And he also knew Rajendranandana very well, not only here, but as he's been going to Mayapur too, so he'll be able to share both. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I wish it were under different circumstances. So I met Rajendranandana first in 1977 in Mayapur, very briefly, in Vrindavan, excuse me, very briefly, the introduction. But I remembered that maybe Damodar Maharaj had told me he was with Prabhupada when he passed. So I was so impressed because this would have been 1978, excuse me. It was the year after I was supposed to be there, and the temple couldn't pull it off. So I remember seeing Rajendranandana and thinking, wow, he was there with Prabhupada. So I met him, but we really connected here when, back in I think I arrived in San Diego in 1990. And he acted like he remembered me, which is always comforting. They say the sweetest sound in any language to any person is the sound of their own name. So he somehow remembered me, but we really became close in Mayapur because it's my intention to do what Raj has shown by example, to go and live in Mayapur for 6 months of the year. And I'm going to keep this brief because I know we're running short on time. Just a couple things. When we would go to Mangal Arti in the morning, he's much taller. So, he would see me and he'd kind of pull me because he knew I couldn't see through him. And it got to the point where I followed him around like a puppy dog. I figured if Raj does it, then it's bona fide. Really, it's true. I just watched, okay, is Raj doing this? Okay, then I can do this. And of course, we've all heard from so many of you, the smile, the friendship. The amazing thing about a Vaishnav, elevated as he was, is that everyone he meets makes the person he's meeting with feel extremely special. Like, you're the only one that matters right now. I'm with you. I'm talking to you. And he was like that with me. And when I left Mayapur last time, I was with my son, Madhuripura, and I was going back to get everything together. And he was walking toward me with the twins. And this had never happened. And I said, Prabhu, I'll see you. We're planning on going back to California. So I know I'll be seeing you in San Diego. As someone else mentioned, we always think everybody's going to be around forever. And it's true. We interacted as friends. And I'm going to backtrack one time before I tell the story about the twins. I was in Mayapur, and I really wanted to go on Parikaram. And no one was available. So I mentioned it to Raj. He said, what time do you want to go? He said, I'll take you. And I said, you don't have enough on your plate? No, it'll be a joy. So he did that. And yes, he was a scholar. He was a gentleman. He was everything anybody would want to have as a friend. And for some of us, this friendship attitude is because we've known each other so long. But Yudhishthira is right. When we look back, when that person's gone, it hits you. I was in the presence of a saint. I was in the presence of a saint. He put his arms around me. He spoke to me as if I was his equal, which I certainly am not, and probably never will be. So this particular time, I was getting ready to leave, and when you leave Mayapur, if you don't cry, if you leave the Dham and you're not crying, you never entered it. And I remember feeling really stressed and just, I'm going to leave, and I see him, and I said, I'll see you back in California. Well, you're leaving? Come here. And the twins were there, and he was there, and they all embraced me, and I thought I was going to melt. Because I would see him sitting at a table with the twins taking lunch. And on occasion they would say, would you like to come? But I always felt like, these guys are the big guns. What do I have to say? I'll crack some foul joke. I'll do something really foolish. But that was something that was so memorable to me. And when I got the news, I called. I was at work, and I called, and the message machine picked up. So I'm leaving him this message saying, listen, I just found out. I know this is not a good time. Madhuri and I want to come and see you, but whenever you want. So you just need to let me know when you're up to it. And as I was leaving this message, my phone rang in, and it said, mobile number San Diego. So I'm torn. I'm thinking, it doesn't say Rajendranandana. So if I pick it up, I'm not leaving this message, which was critically important for me to say, I know and I want to see you. And so I actually mentioned that. I said, Raj, listen, somebody's calling in, but I'm not taking this message because I really need to leave this message for you to know that we want to come down and, that we're thinking about you. So this was unanticipated. I'm going to play the message he left for me while I was leaving him that message, and then I'm going to wrap it up. And in my opinion, this message says everything we all want to say from his own lips. You'll hear it. My phone's just about dead. I looked down and I realized it was on, and I was thinking, oh, this will be a nightmare. Don't go away. Wait, hang on. It's right here. Here we are. I may cut it off at some point, because he started to speak about some other things. I don't think any of it's really. Oh, it's hooked up to my hearing aid. Sorry. I'm listening to him. That wasn't the point. Let's just disconnect these real quick. Hey. Oh, boy. Disconnect. Okay, sorry guys. Here we go. Why isn't it? Okay, no, it's here. Here we go. Speaker? Yeah. No, I'm not. Don't want to call you. You're not going to answer. Why won't it go on speaker?
That you and your family are doing well. Thank you for thinking of me. My consciousness is good, surrounded by some of my loving family members and friends, and the future looks very bright. Krishna and Prabhupada are taking care of me in every way imaginable. It's taken time with the bureaucracy of the county, SSI board, et cetera, giving help. But things are good, and it's nice to think of you, and thank you for calling, my friend. I'll talk to you later. I don't think it's nice so good that it's getting late, and we're hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita.
And we're hearing.
So, until next time, Hare Krishna.
Need I say anything more? And one thing I just do want to say is that it is so important as our generation, we're dropping like flies. Let everything go. Let all the past go. Be kind to one another. Care for one another. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prahlada Priya Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I will make it quick. I just had a few words I wanted to say myself, and then the other Prabhus can speak. So just, oh boy, Rajendranandana Prabhu. So I wanted to say, first of all, Chatura specifically requested that the picture we have of Rajendranandana Prabhu, you see he's all shaved up. He's full of vanaprast. She said he was so happy when he was able to, he lived his life as an honorable householder. He balanced it, like I said, he balanced it in such a way that he could do the work. Like it was mentioned earlier, it was like a very difficult, challenging work, but he did it expertly, and then he would save the funds and then go to Mayapur. So he's practically almost Vanaprast anyways, just with his preaching and his sadhana and his, serving the devotees and leading so many on Mayapur Parikrama and preaching and so many things like that. But when he was able to actually say, hey, I'm not going back to work, I'm shaving up, she said that's how he wanted to be remembered, that he was so happy to be able to do that. And I can say honestly for myself, I got to spend a little bit with time with Rajendranandana about a week before he passed away. And I thanked him for his wonderful example, as a householder. And also, like Prahlada Priya Prabhu said, that we're not getting any younger, and our time, if we want to get in line for that ticket, we better make sure we're properly in line. But just thanked him for being such an inspiration and such a good example for all of us, to follow, to really become absorbed in Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada's, mission, Srila Prabhupada's the community of devotees and serving Srila Prabhupada, and be absorbed in that way. So I got to thank him for that, and I was able to grab one more of those Rajendranandana hugs from him, while I got to see him. So I was very glad to be able to do that. And I was thinking about, I think Buddy Narayan Swami, someone else had commented how, his absorption, like when that laugh would come, that would be because he was so focused. And if something came up that just like, it was almost like his heart was just floating in the topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita or whatever was being spoken. And then all of a sudden, something would hit home and he would laugh. He would show that blissful emotion just because of his intense, focus in that way. Oh, well, by the way, sometimes we're listening, Jayashree and I would be listening to Srila Prabhupada memories, and some of them are in L.A., like the Prabhupada Memorial Festival and other things like that. And all of a sudden, you won't see Raj, but you'll hear his laugh. It'll just boom, 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 come right through. Raj is laughing. He said, hey, we know Rajendranandana Prabhu's there. And he loved that festival very, very much. So, just wanted to thank Rajendranandana so much for being such a wonderful devotee and a wonderful part of our community, setting such a great example. and just sharing his love and his kindness and his example with all of us. So we'll definitely miss you very much, Rajendranandana Prabhu. Okay, Hare Krishna. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai. Okay. And now we have a quick video or conference with Jagadananda Prabhu himself, who cared so nicely for Rajendranandana Prabhu.
Prabhu?
Now, yes. Hare Krishna.
Okay. I just wanted to express my gratitude. As Yudhisthira Prabhu mentioned, for getting the opportunity to come and assist Rajendranandana Prabhu in his transition back home, back to Godhead. It was a great experience, and I feel extreme gratitude to have the opportunity to have Raj in my life since I was 20 years old when I met him the first time up in Grass Valley when I was serving Trivikram Maharaj. And also some years later on, he reached out to me because I was the one that brought him into the show business, doing fairs and all that, and that was really just an amazing thing for me, having Vishwamitra Prabhu and Rajendranandana traveling and being on the road with them. And he was such a Krishna conscious example. It didn't matter where he was, whether, obviously if you saw him in Mayapur on the road, I'd be out in Massachusetts at a show and he'd be walking around on his breaks with his bead bag under his arm, doing his rounds. He'd come to my booth and take a break and do some chanting to get away from it. And yeah, it was just really amazing to have him in my life. And I'm really was inspired that I got to come there and serve him in his final days. And I just wanted to correct Yudhisthira when he spoke regarding the pastime of the medicine, that he was speaking about it being addictive. We never wound up giving him any medicine because they didn't want it. But I just wanted to thank all the devotees there that came and saw him before he left and were there, and they were so kind to me and tolerating me and my passionate nature. Please forgive any offenses that I may have knowingly or unknowingly committed in the whole process. And all glories to Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai. Dandavat pranams to everybody, and Rajendranandana Prabhu especially.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Guru Krishna Prabhu wanted to say a few words. Sorry, but please.
Thank you for the opportunity to say something. We had most of our association with Rajendranandana Prabhu here in San Diego, but like Prahlada Priya and Yudhisthira, I also had association with him in Mayapur different times. I was fortunate to visit Mayapur, and I would immediately look around the crowd to see if I could see him towering above the rest, and I would try to position myself over there and, kind of stand behind him, let him kind of discover me and get that big smile of his, So he would invite me to take prasadam, and where all the Prabhupada disciples would take prasadam, and I would always be a little nervous about that because I'm a little bit older, and sometimes I get confused with being a Prabhupada disciple. So, me showing up there with all the other Prabhupada disciples might just, mislead a lot of people. But he would just look at me like, I'm inviting you to take prasad, and you're going to refuse? And so we would take prasad together, and he would give class. So then, if you've been to Mayapur during Japa period, Prabhupada's Vyasasana is there across from the altar in the back of the room, and all the sannyasis and senior devotees will sit on cushions and chant their japa right there. So I was, sitting across from them chanting japa, but I don't see Rajendranandan. I'm wondering where's Rajendranandan, And then finally I'm looking around, and then I see him way over here. He's next to the Radhamamadava altar. There's a little hallway that goes back on the side there. And so, what's he doing way over there? Why is he way over there? How come he's not here? Prabhupada's right here. You can chant japa right next to Prabhupada. And so I thought, well, I'll have to ask him about that. But then the next day, I didn't get a chance, so I noticed he's not there again. And I looked back, and then, there he is again. And now I'm becoming like more confused, and I realized, there's also a lot of women over there too. Like, none of this makes any sense at all. And I became a little disturbed in my mind. So then I thought, well, I got distracted. But the next day I thought, I'm gonna go over there and sit next to him. So I went over there and sat next to him, and he welcomed me over with his big oceanic smile. And Hare Krishna. And he said, well, Guru Krishna, please sit down. So, I sat next to him, put down my chadar and sat down. And I was just wondering what you're doing over here, Why are you way over here? And he said, you'll find out. So we were just chanting away, and all of a sudden there's also another altar. It's Lord Nrsingadev's altar. It's like its own little like column. It's actually like that, like a pillar with doors in it. So it cracked open, and Rajendra immediately looked over like this, eyes a little bit big, and I'm thinking, well, what's going on? And then either Pakanjanari or Janadivas comes out, and he has this loda, brass loda, with some leaves sticking out of it, and he's coming over, and Rajendra's looking up like this, and then he comes over with the leaves, and he sprinkles us with the bath water from Lord Nrsingadev. And that's what he's doing over there. Every japa morning, he's separating himself with all his god brothers just to get the mercy of Lord Nrsingadev. And he's just like that. He was just very very aggressive for the mercy, just a nectar hound. So that's what I wanted to share with you. We sorely miss this devotee. We're in this ocean of nescience. We walk out this door and we're just surrounded by all kinds of rascals, and to lose a great Vaishnava like this that we could hear from is really why we're all so sad, because now we're just bereft of another wonderful Vaishnava that we used to hear from, but now we can't. So that's personally why I'm so sad, and but I'm also very, very happy that he's gone, and he doesn't have to put up with any of the stuff that we're going through anymore. Never again. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you very much, Guru Krishna Prabhu. So we're actually, because we've got we have 4 more individuals who are online that want to say something, and if they can hear me, keep it short, keep it sweet, and we would like to hear from them too. Okay, go ahead.
So I'll say something. This is Lavanya Mangala, and I moved down to San Diego from Alaska in 1993, and Rajendranandana was the temple president then, and he gave me so much mercy as a new Vaishnav to the community. He used to call me B.I. Lori, because I came down there to organize Sadhaputa's library. And he was like the heart of the community. And everyone's already said so many beautiful things about him, so I won't repeat those. But the one thing that always struck me was that he embodied this really unique, in my mind, dichotomy between the Vaishnav Sangha and culture, but he brought his own bhakti from somewhere else, some other lifetime, and some other tradition. And I just really appreciated that. And then when I was down at New Govardhan this past Radhastami, I was sitting outside the door on the patio, and he came out the side door, and I looked at him, and I held up my walking stick for him to clack against mine. And he was kind of lurching out, and he hesitated for a minute, but then he just gave me that big smile, and we clacked sticks, and that was his goodbye to me. So special. Thank you all for sharing your wonderful memories. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay, who's next? Tapas Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I can hear you. Yeah, you're good to go. Sorry about that.
Okay. Hare Krishna. I just wanted to say that I'm really happy to see so many devotees there currently in the temple, and I miss you all very much. So I just wrote something short that I'd like to share. My dear Rajendranandana Prabhu, I will try and keep this short and sweet. I know that while the arrival and departure of the great Vaishnavas is compared to the rising and the setting of the sun, each event glorious, full of splendor, and worthy of awe in their own right, I am still very sorry to hear that you have left our company. You were, and of course you still are, very important to me and countless other devotees. I'll just pause here really quick, and I just wanted to share just two memories that are standing out to me. But when Rajendranandana Prabhu, as you all know, he frequented Mayapur. He would stay there for several months out of the year. And just this most recent time that he was there, he would call me. He would call me. I was living in the ashram at the time. And after we would talk for about 30 minutes or so. And after we talked, I would be like, how is this? Why? Like, he's in the holy dham full of so many other exalted devotees. Like, why would you think of me? Like, why is he thinking of me? And it was just, I just felt very grateful to have him in my life as an example, as a devotee, and he saw me as a friend. And I remember just a funny story. Shortly after he got back, I think it was, he and Chatura Mataji, he came to the temple for a Sunday feast, and I was talking with him for a while. I was just sitting there talking with him, and he was taking prasad. And I had this intention the whole time of when he was done taking prasad, to or that I was gonna take it away for him. I was gonna take away the plate, and I was gonna like get some of his remnants. But I was talking. He was, or his wife, Chatura Mataji, had come in, and she had taken the plate, and I stopped for a second. I was kind of like, I was gonna take that, and for some reason I had said it out loud to him. I was like, oh, I was gonna take that plate. And he this is kind of funny, but he was just like, well, you better go catch her then. And so I like ran out the door, and I just asked if I could share some of his remnants. And she happily shared his remnants with me. So that's just a little story that I had. I'll continue the rest of my letter. It's very short. You had a brilliant smile that could light up a room, and you possessed a laugh that could make the heavens tremble. You exemplified a devotional life You know what you knew what it was to be a friend. You knew what it was to be a teacher. You knew what it was to be helpful. You knew what it was to be compassionate, kind, and tolerant. And though you yourself may deny it, you knew what it was to be a devotee. It is said that a devotee is someone who by their presence can inspire others to take up devotional life. I'd like to take this just a step further and say that even in their absence can and does a devotee inspire others in devotional life. The very second that I had heard of your leaving this world, I immediately picked up my japa bag and began to chant the Lord's holy name. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being here with us for the time that you were able. Hare Krishna Prabhu, I love you.
Krishna, thank you so much, Bhakti Jamal. Okay, I know we have two more, and once again, because of the time, we ask you to please make your offering. Obviously, we want to hear it sweet, but keep it as short as you can, but without missing your opportunity.
Thank you, Bhakti Jamal. Thank you very much, Prabhu. This is Maitreya Das. I joined in San Diego in 1981, and I met His Grace Rajendranandana Prabhu when he came in the 90s, and I think from Hawaii. And we became good friends right away because he's such a friendly Vaishnava. We've heard about his smile and his big heart. And anyway, I've moved away from San Diego and live in the Pacific Northwest now. And I watch I used to watch him give class. I watch the YouTube feed. So I'm in Mangalartik every morning with Sri Sri Radha Giridhari by YouTube. And when Rajendranandana came back, he had entered Vanaprastha, was retired, and he would give classes regularly. And I watched his meteoric advancement. I mean, he was already an advanced devotee, but his classes became more and more saturated with his devotion and his study and his realizations. It was really amazing to hear it. And when I found out that he was going to be leaving shortly, I realized he'd just taken the express route right to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. So anyway, it was really wonderful to have his association, and we're all going to miss him very much. Hare Krishna. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Maitreya Prabhu. Okay, I think we have one more speaker.
It's me. It's my turn. This is Vijaya Krishna Das Prabhu with a brief homage to Rajendranandana Prabhu. May I?
Yes, please do, Vijaya Krishna Prabhu. Please
Yes.
give.
Thank you very much. Very briefly, I got the good fortune of having my questions answered by Rajendranandana Prabhu in relation to daily discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam, ISKCON San Diego. And he answered my questions in such a way that now I am sure that ISKCON San Diego represents the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya in a very, very excellent way due to the service he was doing in relation to, because disciplic succession is the same as to say that you need to know how to present the knowledge, because without knowledge we cannot free ourselves from material entanglement. And Rajendranandana Prabhu knew how to do it. So not only because of this, but I think mostly because of this, he will be missed forever. And I hope that ISKCON San Diego could be there following in his footsteps in relation to the quality of the knowledge he was presenting to the ones who want to participate of San Diego Sangha in relation to the achievement of necessary knowledge in order to free ourselves from material entanglement. He was a true scholar. Rajendranandana Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you very much, Vijaya Krishna.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Rajendranandana Prabhu Ki Jai. We do have, as Yudhishthir mentioned, our own very own Mukunda Charana Prabhu. He was there with Rajendranandana Prabhu. I mean, I came in with my wife to visit, and he was sitting at the foot of Rajendranandana's bed, and I said, well, you got the best spot, because he's right by his feet, you know? And Mukunda Charan was there for a boy, just like a solid, day after day. I know that it was last minute. 31 hours straight, and just very, very, and helping in whatever way he could, chanting and hearing and reading and just being there of service and wanting to be there for Rajendranandana Prabhu in a very humble and service-like mood. So Mukunda Charana is also logged in. So our final talk will be by Mukunda Charana Prabhu, and then we'll have a few closing words. I want to apologize to anyone who wanted to speak but didn't get a chance to speak. My humble obeisances, I apologize for that. But let's listen to Mukunda Charana Prabhu. We'll have a few closing words, and then we'll have a sweet kirtan, and we can all think about our Rajendranandana Prabhu dancing in that kirtan.
Hare Krishna. I was not planning to speak initially, but thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think I was one of the last people to know, it seems, that Rajendranandana Prabhu was going to depart. And it was interesting. I think a day or 2 days before that, I was speaking about him to my spiritual master. I was visiting my spiritual master and discussing him, and I was mentioning how I was just so grateful that that he came back from Mayapur to visit San Diego, and I guess around the summer 2020. And I guess maybe I should also mention that, because I think this came up today and also in the memorial in Mayapur. To my knowledge, the reason he came back from Mayapur was specifically that he so much wanted to be part of a morning program. He so much liked being part of the morning program, part of being there with devotees, having kirtan, having class, having breakfast together. And at the time, he wasn't able to have that in Mayapur. And he was seeing how in San Diego that was available. And so that's how he explained to me why he was really became eager to come back to San Diego, was for that devotee association, that morning program. Anyway, I was just before a day or two before I found out the shocking news. I was just mentioning that how I was really grateful for that, and also I was specifically mentioning it because I was so, I was so optimistic. I was mentioning how I was so happy because I was saying, very soon, I'm hoping that maybe things maybe back in the spring or sometime this spring, things will maybe be back a little more to normal. And, Rajendranandana Prabhu might be back at the temple, giving his classes again. And I was just mentioning that to my spiritual master, and he didn't say anything. He was just, said something like, yes, he's a very nice devotee. And so then, I finally, spoke to a brahmachari a couple of day or two later, and I heard the news, and it just really hit me that wasn't going to happen. And I mentioned that to my spiritual master, and he said actually he already knew. He just didn't want to break it to me, but he mentioned how he wasn't worried about it. He just mentioned how he wasn't worried about it. He said, because I spoke to Rajendranandana Prabhu, and he said, "Oh, please, sincerely, and I mean, take this seriously. Tell your spiritual master to pray for me, that I am Krishna." And so I mentioned that to my spiritual master. I said, "I want to relay to you his message." My spiritual master practically rolled his eyes and said, "Oh, he will," like as if I need to pray for that. He just said he will. Again, I don't have much more to ask or to add to the glorification than others did. But one thing that I was particularly that I was continually thinking about when while watching Rajendranandana Prabhu leave this world, which was really an incredible thing, really an exemplary thing. He and his wife, his son, it was all so beautiful. And but one thing I was thinking of, and Yudhishthira Prabhu touched on this, I was just thinking that, you know, I felt a little embarrassed being there, getting to, you know, there's so little space, and I felt a little ashamed getting to be there for like, you know, long stretches of time. Because while I was sitting there, and before when we were talking or we were reading to him, I was just thinking, you know, even the days before that, I was just thinking that, you know, here goes Rajendranandana Prabhu, and I felt like I didn't really know him, because, like others said, he treated me as a friend. I mean, you know, even his godbrothers were saying how odd it felt when he treated them as a friend, but for me, he treated me as a friend too. So I recognized him as a senior, but he treated me as a friend also. And I guess I was just, while he was leaving, I just kept realizing that, you know, there he goes, and I feel like I still don't know him. I'm realizing now that I just don't know him, because as they say, it takes one to know one, and I'm just not there, so I'm not appreciating so much more that there is to appreciate. And so, of course, as Dravidapu said, we have all of his classes, wonderful classes. It's just the most inspiring part of the past couple of years for me. Such wonderful classes. And so I was thinking, on the more optimistic side, I was thinking that, you know, on one hand, I'm realizing now how little I know Rajendranandana Prabhu. I felt like I knew him. I felt like we were close. And now I'm realizing that, you know, he extended his mercy to me, but what do I know about Rajendranandana Prabhu? And I was just thinking that, well, you know, if I, as with all these senior devotees, if I followed in his instructions, if I implement, if I take seriously the corrections he's given me, then I can come to know. I can come to a level where I can understand other devotees, appreciate other devotees. Last thing I'll say, and it may not be related, is right at the end, when Rajendranandana Prabhu it seemed clear that he was just about to leave. I haven't had a cell phone for a little while, so but I wanted to contact Vijay Prabhu. I was told to contact Vijay Prabhu and tell Vijay Prabhu to come over to see him before he left. And so I didn't have a phone, so I took Rajendranandana Prabhu's phone to send a message to Vijay Prabhu. And while I went to his messages, his text messages, and I saw that he'd been texting me. He'd been sending me text messages, but I didn't know that because I didn't have a phone. And so I don't know what he thought, why I wasn't replying to his messages. But anyway, there were some messages, and one of them was just inspired the quote. And I'm not saying it's the conclusion of this remembrance, but I thought I might as well read it because it's the last thing he texted. And I thought it was a good quote. Why not read it? It's quote from Srila Prabhupada, 1972, June 15th. Fix up what devotees we have got. Make sure everyone is reading regularly my literatures and discussing seriously from different angles of seeing. What good are many, many devotees if no one is knowledgeable? Take from that what you like. It's just the last thing he sent to me. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. It was so nice to hear from all of you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mukunda Charana Prabhu. Okay, so we're gonna. Unfortunately, we could keep going and going. It's so wonderful to talk about Rajendranandana Prabhu and to meditate on him. But we'll need to close it up. And once again, like I said, I apologize any of you who wanted to speak that maybe you didn't get a chance tonight. It's just wonderful that so many devotees are here to share this time. And what we'll do, I was thinking maybe together we'd say the Vaishnava obeisances, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, and Hare Krishna all together for Rajendranandana Prabhu. So we'll start Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki, Rajendranandana Prabhu ki, Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very, very much.